Today, we're going to talk about 3 different properties in math. The very first property I'm going to talk about is called distributive. I would suggest writing this in your notebook so you have reference to it later. Now, distributive comes from a root word, distribute, which means to hand out, to give out. So if I was to distribute packages out to each one of you, I'm giving each and every single one of you a package. So like in the first day of school, I distributed Hershey Kisses by giving each of you Hershey Kisses. So distributive is that same idea. You're going to have an equation that is a mixture of multiplication and addition. So you can have 6 times 2 plus 3. So the addition's inside the parentheses and the multiplication's outside of it. Now, what this says when I use distributive property is I can solve this several ways. The first way is I can simply take 2 plus 3, which is 5, and multiply it by 6, and I get 30. That's one way. Or I can use the distributive property, which says I'm going to take the 6, multiply it by the 2 first. Let's see if I use a different color so it stands out a little bit more. So if I take the 6 and multiply it by 2, 6 times 2 is the first thing I'm going to do. Then I'm going to keep this plus, move it down, and then I'm going to start over, and then I'm going to take 6 and times it by the 3. And I'm going to do 6 times 3. So what I essentially did is I distributed the 6. Then what I do is solve it. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 6 times 3 is 18. And so when you add those two together, 18 plus 12, 8, 9, 10, I get 30 again. Remember, 2 plus 3 is 5, plus, times 6 is 30. You get the same answer. What this property is telling you says it doesn't matter which way you use. You're going to get the same answer. I can show you with another problem. Let me take the problem, and I'm going to show you side by side the two problems. So what if I take the problem 4 plus 2, and I'm going to put 5 out here. Okay? So I'm going to do this the regular way. So I'm going to do 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. Okay? That's one way. Then I'm going to do it another way. I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to write 5, 4 plus 2 again, and this time I'm going to distribute. 5 times 4 plus 5 times 2. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 5 times 2 is 10. Add it together, you get 30. Same answer. That's what distributive property is. That's the first property. The second property that I'm going to show you, so I erase all of this, is called associative property. Now what associative property says, it doesn't matter whether you're multiplying or adding. It only works with multiplying and adding. No matter how you group the numbers, you're going to get the same answer. So for example, if I say 5 plus 3 plus 8. Now, if I put parentheses around these first two, the parentheses essentially tell me that Whatever's in the parentheses, I solve first. So I have the parentheses around the 5 and the 3, so I'm going to solve that first. 5 plus 3 is 8, and add the second 8, that's 16. So what associative property says is it doesn't matter. If I have that same property again, it doesn't matter which numbers I group together first. So let's say I put parentheses around the 3 and the 8. Well, that means I got to do the 8 plus the 3 first. So I'm going to do 5 plus 8, 9, 10, 11, which is 11. And if I add them together, it's 16. So associative property says it doesn't matter which two numbers I decide to put in parentheses first. You can switch the parentheses and change the order of how you add it, and you will still get 16. You'll get the same answer. That's what associative property means. It also works for multiplication. So if I take the multiplication problem and I decide to choose 2, and I'm going to put a dot for multiplication, times 4 times 3. So if I choose to put the parentheses around these two first, that means I got to solve that first. So 2 times 4 is 8, times it by 3, it's 24. Now, if I take that same problem again, 2 times 4 times 3, but this time I put the parentheses around the 4 and the 3, I got to solve that first. So I got 2 times 12. Well, 2 times 12 is 24, and I get the same answer. That's associative property. The last property to show you is commutative. Commutative is almost the same as associative. Okay? It's just all about order. Commutative property. It's all about order. And you can do it with addition or multiplication, either one. So if I got 5 plus 2 plus 8, and I add that together and I add 5 plus 2, there's no parentheses. 5 plus 2, and I could if I wanted to, but it doesn't make a difference. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 8, when I add that together, I get 15. But what commutative property says is I can switch the order. I could put 5 plus 8 plus 2. I use the same numbers. But notice I switch the 8 and the 2. And since I switch the 8 and the 2, I'm going to still go in that same order. 5 plus 8 is 13 plus 2, and I still get 15. So I switched the order. I can also do 2 plus 5 plus 8. Switch the first two. And I get 7 plus 8, and I still get 15. So commutative property means I can switch the order.